welcome to your deep dive on healing the masculine soul.
Oh, yeah.
You've given us a really fascinating set of sources,
Yeah.
all centered around this book by Gordon Dalbey.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you're really interested in understanding the challenges men face today
Absolutely.
and how they can find healing and growth.
For sure.
We're excited to kind of explore this with you.
Yeah, me too.
So, when I first saw the title, I have to admit I was a little skeptical.
Okay.
Healing the masculine
Okay.
soul. It sounds a little,
Yeah.
I don't know, the word crisis.
Yeah.
Is Dalbey being a little overly dramatic here?
Right.
Or is there really something deeper going on?
Well, I think he makes a pretty compelling case.
Okay.
He argues that the traditional roles for men, like being the provider or the protector, have shifted dramatically.
Yeah.
And that leaves a lot of men feeling lost, unsure of their place in a world that doesn't seem to value those older ideas of strength.
Yeah, so it's like a disconnect between what society expects
Yep.
and what many men were raised to believe.
Exactly.
Yes,
And that can
yeah.
lead to a lot of inner conflict.
For sure.
Men are caught between trying to be sensitive and strong without a clear roadmap for how to actually do that.
Mm-hmm. That tension must be incredibly tough to navigate.
Yeah, it can be.
And that's where Dalby's exploration of these wounds comes in.
Right.
He doesn't just focus on the physical.
Mm-hmm.
He dives into the emotional and spiritual wounds
Right.
that often stem from childhood.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned spiritual void.
Yes.
For someone who's not religious,
Yeah.
how would they recognize this in themselves?
Right.
What does it feel like?
That's a great question. I think it often manifests as a sense of emptiness, like a lack of meaning or purpose
Mm-hmm.
beyond the day-to-day. So you might feel a longing for something more, a deeper connection, but you're not sure what it is or where to find it.
Right. It's almost like a missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And you don't know what the picture is supposed to be.
Exactly. And Dalby argues that this spiritual void is a significant factor in this crisis of masculinity.
We've talked about the problems, but what are some concrete steps men can take today to start healing? Dalby mentions practical techniques. Let's dig into those.
Yeah, sure. So he highlights the power of naming your emotions.
Okay.
Not just to others, but to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
In a journal, for instance. This act alone can diminish their hold on you.
That's interesting. It's almost like giving those emotions a name takes away some of their power.
That's the idea, yeah. Allows you to observe them without being overwhelmed.
Okay.
Another powerful technique he suggests is mindfulness.
What are some ways men can incorporate mindfulness
Oh, yeah.
into their daily lives?
For sure.
Does Dalby give any specific exercises?
Absolutely. He suggests starting with just a few minutes each day.
Okay.
Focus on your breath,
Yeah.
notice the sensations in your body, and observe your thoughts without judgment. He also recommends mindful walking, where you pay close attention to each step and the feeling of your feet on the ground.
So it's about bringing awareness to the present moment
Exactly.
instead of getting lost in the past
Right.
or worrying about the future.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this practice can be incredibly helpful in managing stress, anxiety, and those difficult emotions we were just discussing.
One chapter that really caught my attention was the one about the father's role.
Mm-hmm.
Dalby really emphasizes its importance, but what about single mothers raising sons? Does he address that at all?
He does acknowledge the vital role mothers play in shaping their son's masculinity, particularly in the absence of a father figure.
Okay.
He also discusses the importance of seeking out positive male role models in the community, whether it's a teacher, a coach,
Yeah.
or a mentor.
This raises an important question. How does healing begin when that father-son relationship is damaged? Perhaps by absence or abuse?
Yeah.
It's not like you can go back and change the past.
You can't change the past, but you can change how you relate to it. Dalby suggests seeking out alternative models of healthy masculinity, mentors, positive male role models,
Yeah.
even figures from history or literature.
Interesting.
It's about finding examples of manhood that are both strong and compassionate.
I'm intrigued by this idea of finding strength in surrender. It seems kind of counterintuitive.
Right.
Could you explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, so he's talking about surrendering to a force greater than yourself.
Okay.
It could be love, compassion, a sense of purpose, even spirituality. It's about letting go of the ego's need for control and allowing yourself to be vulnerable.
Okay. One of the most powerful ideas I've encountered,
Yeah.
not just in this book, but anywhere, is that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's actually a strength.
Absolutely.
That goes against so much of what we're traditionally taught about masculinity.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And Dalbey really leans into that. He argues that allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to express your emotions authentically, is essential for genuine connection and personal growth. But I can see how that feels risky, especially for men who have been conditioned to suppress their emotions.
So how do you overcome that fear of opening up?
It starts with developing emotional intelligence.
I hear that phrase a lot, but what does that actually mean in practical terms?
It means learning to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions.
Okay.
It also involves becoming attuned to the emotions of others.
So it's not just about being in touch with your own feelings, but also being sensitive to the feelings of those around you.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And Dalbey offers some practical ways to cultivate that emotional intelligence.
This idea of emotional intelligence really resonates with me. Let's dive into those practical steps in the next part of our deep dive.
So Dalbey lays out these specific techniques for cultivating emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about reading a definition. He gives you tools to actually work with.
I appreciate that about his approach. It's very practical and action-oriented.
Yeah.
So what are some of those tools?
Well, he talks about things like self-reflection, taking time to examine your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors without judgment.
Okay.
It's like holding up a mirror to your inner world.
Does he give any guidance on how to do that? It sounds a bit intimidating, to be honest.
He does. He suggests journaling as one way to engage in self-reflection.
Okay.
You know, writing down your thoughts and feelings can help you process them more effectively. He also recommends mindfulness practices.
Right, bringing awareness to the present moment. But how does that tie into emotional intelligence?
Well, when you're more present, you're less likely to react impulsively to your emotions.
Okay.
You can observe them, understand their triggers, and choose how to respond in a more thoughtful way.
It's like creating a space between the feeling and the reaction.
Exactly.
Which gives you more control.
That's a key aspect of emotional intelligence. Yeah. And Dalbey also emphasizes the importance of improving communication skills.
That makes sense. If you can't articulate your feelings clearly, it's just going to create misunderstandings and conflict.
Yeah.
In your relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He encourages men to practice active listening.
Okay.
Which involves truly hearing and understanding what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally. He also talks about the importance of using I statements to express your feelings in a way that's less accusatory.
So instead of saying, you always make me feel,
Right.
it's more effective to say, I feel when.
Exactly.
Okay.
It shifts the focus from blaming to taking ownership of your own emotions.
I see.
And speaking of relationships, Dalbey also stresses the importance of building trust.
You mentioned earlier that Dalbey also discusses seeking professional guidance through therapy.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's so important, especially for men who might be hesitant to open up?
Well, there's still a stigma around therapy, especially for men.
Right.
But Dalbey views it as a sign of strength, not weakness. It takes courage to seek help. And to work through those deep-seated issues, a therapist can provide a safe and confidential space to explore your emotions, challenge negative thought patterns, and develop healthier coping mechanisms.
It's like having a guide on your journey of self-discovery, someone who can offer support and insights along the way.
That's a great way to put it. Now, shifting gears a bit, another theme that weaves throughout the book is this idea of finding spiritual purpose.
What role does that play in healing the masculine soul?
Dalbey believes that many men feel a spiritual void, a longing for something deeper than just material success or external validation.
You know, I can relate to that. I've achieved a lot in my career, but there are times when I still feel like something's missing.
That's exactly what he's talking about. And he argues that reconnecting with a higher power or finding a sense of meaning that transcends everyday life is crucial for healing that spiritual void.
So it's not necessarily about organized religion.
Not exclusively. It could be through prayer, meditation, spending time in nature, or engaging in acts of service. It's about finding practices that nurture your soul and connect you to something larger than yourself.
It's like finding your North Star.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Something to guide you on your journey. And alongside that spiritual connection, Dalbey also emphasizes the importance of community.
We live in a culture that often celebrates individualism. But it seems like he's saying that we need each other. especially men.
He is.
Yeah.
He believes that feeling connected to others, particularly other men who are on a similar journey of growth and healing, can provide invaluable support and encouragement.
So it's about breaking down those walls of isolation and creating a sense of brotherhood.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you're not alone in your struggles and that sharing your experiences with others can be incredibly healing.
You've provided us with a set of really powerful quotes that kind of touch on these themes. Maybe we can explore those and how they connect to Dalbey's ideas. In the final part of our deep dive, I'm really drawn to these quotes you pulled out. They kind of distill some of the core messages of healing the masculine soul into these potent little packages.
They do. Yeah, it's amazing how a single sentence can sometimes capture an idea that takes an entire chapter to explain.
One that really resonated with me was, true masculinity is not achieved through control or power, but through intimacy and connection.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like a complete reframing of what we've been taught to believe about masculinity.
It is a reframing, and I think it's a necessary one.
Yeah.
So much of traditional masculinity is built around this idea of being in control, being the strong and silent type.
Right.
But Dalbey argues that true fulfillment comes from letting go of that need for control and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, to connect with others on a deeper level.
It's like he's saying the true strength lies in opening yourself up, not closing yourself off.
Yeah.
Which can be a really challenging shift for a lot of men.
It can.
Another quote that struck me was, in confronting our weaknesses openly, we uncover a deeper strength, the strength of vulnerability.
I love that one.
It seems paradoxical, but I think there's a profound truth to it.
There is. It's about recognizing that we all have weaknesses. We all have flaws. And it's in acknowledging those imperfections, not hiding them, that we find true strength.
Yeah.
It's through that vulnerability that we're able to connect with others authentically and build genuine relationships.
For a long time, I used to think showing vulnerability was a weakness. It felt risky, like I was exposing myself to potential hurt. But what I've realized is that it's actually the opposite.
Right.
It takes real strength to be open and honest about your struggles, your fears, your insecurities.
That's such an important insight, and it's something that Dalbey emphasizes throughout the book. Vulnerability isn't about weakness. It's about courage.
There's another quote here that I think really speaks to the heart of Dalbey's message. Healing the masculine soul requires a journey into the heart, where wounds are acknowledged and embraced by the love of the Father.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
To me, it speaks to the depth of healing that Dalbey's talking about.
Oh.
It's not just about fixing surface-level issues or masking our pain. It's about going deep within ourselves, confronting those old wounds, and ultimately finding a sense of love and acceptance for who we are, flaws and all.
It sounds like a very introspective
Yeah.
and potentially challenging process.
It can be.
Yeah.
But Dalbey believes it's a journey worth taking, and he offers guidance and practical tools to help men navigate that inner landscape.
This next quote seems to kind of build on that idea. Real healing comes when we learn to listen to the child within us, the one that still longs for the Father's affirmation.
Oh, I love that quote. It
Right.
reminds us that many of the wounds we carry stem from childhood experiences, often from a lack of validation or affirmation from our fathers. And healing requires us to reconnect with that inner child, to offer ourselves the love and acceptance that we may have missed out on.
It's almost like a form of self-parenting, giving ourselves the compassion and understanding that we needed but didn't receive.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it's a powerful step towards healing those old wounds and moving forward in a more whole and integrated way.
Speaking of moving forward, you've also provided a list of books that kind of align with Dalbey's themes. It's fascinating to see this collection because it shows just how much conversation is happening around this topic of masculinity and healing.
It really does. It speaks to a growing awareness of the challenges men face and a hunger for resources and support.
Let's highlight a few of these books. One that caught my eye was The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
What's the connection there?
Well, The Screwtape Letters isn't explicitly about masculinity, but it's a brilliant exploration of human nature and the spiritual battle within us all. It delves into themes of temptation, pride, and the struggle to choose good over evil, which are certainly relevant to all these ideas about healing and growth.
So it offers a different lens
Yeah.
through which to view these universal human struggles.
Yeah.
What about Winning the War in Your Mind by Craig Groeschel?
That book focuses on the power of our thoughts and how they shape our reality.
Okay.
It offers practical strategies for overcoming negative thinking patterns and cultivating a more positive mindset, which aligns with Dalbey's emphasis on developing emotional intelligence and self-awareness.
It's about recognizing that we have a choice in how we respond to our thoughts and feelings.
Exactly.
Okay, what about Wild at Heart by John Eldridge? It seems to be a popular one in this space.
Yeah, Wild at Heart explores the concept of the masculine heart
Okay.
and the longing for adventure, battle, and beauty. That Eldridge believes is inherent in every man.
Interesting.
So while there are some overlapping themes with Dalbey's work, Eldridge's approach tends to focus more on reclaiming a sense of masculine identity and purpose.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. We've explored the crisis of masculinity, the wounds that men carry, the power of vulnerability and emotional intelligence, the importance of spiritual purpose and community, so much more. If you had to distill it down to one key takeaway, what would it be?
I think I'd say healing is possible,
Okay.
even from deep wounds.
Yeah.
It takes courage, self-awareness, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. But the rewards are profound.
Beautifully said. And for you listening, remember, you're not alone on this journey. There are resources available, people who understand, and a path towards wholeness waiting to be discovered. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into healing the masculine soul.